All right, hello and welcome to today's mini lesson on Premiere Pro. Today we're going to talk about sequences and more specifically sequence settings, okay? So this panel right here contains your timeline, but technically, officially, when you're editing on a specific sequence and you can actually merge multiple sequences on the same timeline. But let's not get distracted by that right now. Let's talk about sequence settings and everything like that. So typically what you do when you want to create or start editing, you just drag something right over and drop, and it'll just automatically create a sequence for you. Now, whatever your settings are for this first video clip that you use, or sometimes even a still image, it's going to copy all the details, the aspect ratio, the frame rate, everything about those details, and make a sequence that matches that. But what happens if there's a mismatch? What happens if you accidentally use the wrong footage for your first shot and all the sequences is off? What if, in this case, most of this stuff is shot in 60 frames a second, but I actually want my sequence to be in 30 frames a second? How do you change all that? Well, officially you change it up here, but actually what I'm going to do first for this demonstration is I'm just going to create a sequence without even using a media clip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select right down here in the bottom. It says new item, and you got a lot of options here, but what I want is at the very top. I'm going to create a new sequence. Okay, DSLR 1080 at 30 frames a second. That's what I used last time, and guess what? That's what I'm going to use here. I'm going to give it a name. This is specific video is Homecoming 2021. I'm going to hit OK. All right, so there it goes. It actually made a sequence without using any of the media already. What happens if you already have a sequence that you want to adjust or edit? Well, that's right up here. Sequence. You have to be selected, make sure you're highlighting the right panel here. Sequence, come right down here to sequence settings, and here is all your details that you can adjust. The two that you'll probably want to adjust most often, or actually come in and need to adjust, is right here. The first one, your frame rate, you can change from 2997 to 60, or even 23.976, that's 24 frames a second. And then the other one right here is hiding right here, frame size. So 1920 by 1080. That's your 16 by 9 widescreen, at this point, standard aspect ratio. If you want to change that for any reason, for instance, I do a lot of stuff like for vertical format on Instagram. So what I do a lot of times is I'll actually change this to, I've got it memorized, 864 by 1080. That gives me a 4 by 5 aspect ratio, which is the portrait mode in Instagram. So, you can adjust those as needed. I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel because I don't actually want to apply those changes. But here's what I want to complete this mini lesson. I want you to screenshot this sequence settings panel, and I'm looking for a sequence that is 29.97, 30 frames a second, and 1920 by 1080. That's what I want to see to complete this assignment. If you're in a different editing mode, don't worry about that too much. You might be in something other than just your standard DSLR, but don't worry about that, okay? There's some minutia involved with that, but don't get too distracted by all that, okay? And that's today's mini lesson on sequence settings.